Hey and welcome to Neverwinter with Aragon. So the previous server just had an update where a lot of changes came to especially the fighter DPS, but there was also a few changes with the Barbarian DPS. In this video, we're going to cover everything that we know right now that is changing. There are some particular important things to note with fighter DPS, and it's going to become a decent bit more impactful, and you may very well have to change up your playstyle a little bit. So first of all, the Blade Master on the Barbarian. These are all the changes I could find. You have the encounter power, not so fast, just getting an improvement to its magnitude. Now it's not currently displayed in the tooltip, but that's a bug and it's known, and I've tested the actual damage, and yes, it's 300 magnitude. The Mightier Leap encounter power did get a bit of a cooldown reduction. That's nice. The magnitude has also gone up. Punishing Charge very nicely also got its cooldown reduced. However, I would really like to see Punishing Charge go even a little bit lower to match Bloodletter and Indomitable Battle Strike. Have that 10.7 second cooldown, which you get with Blood Spitter here also on Bloodletter. And that would fit nicely in, let's say, one of their places if you didn't want to run it, especially as a gap closer. And lastly, Roar should be going up to 250 magnitude. Nice improvement. People just generally use it for the rage anyway. But that's it. That's everything. And yeah, people have been saying Trample of the Fallen did actually get quite a heavy nerf, because it did in fact have the ability to give 10% damage to you when you were using certain items and effects, like having your tank use Swarm. Then the enemy was considered somewhat controlled, and you were gaining this 10% damage against that controlled enemy. Even though it was a boss, it was still considered controlled by the Bat Swarm for this power, but that seems to have gotten fixed. If you're a Barbarian player, you're probably unhappy with those changes. They're not that impactful. But we're going to move on to the Fighter Dreadnought. It's got some significant updates here. You may even see some new fancy abilities, getting immunity frames as well. Really good stuff for fighter DPS. So, once again, I have my list of the changes, and here we go. This is the first page. There are 3 pages. So Guarded Strikes got a little bit of a nerf, but it is a buff overall. It was just a bit of balancing, because they have a new ability which does increase it back up. So it basically puts it the same. You'll see why you might want to use those a little bit later. The Shield Slam encounter power, it's an area's effect, got significantly improved. That's very nice. And it's also now going to be a knockdown instead of a knockback. So you won't like troll your teammates and throw the enemies away from yourself as well. Nice improvements there, but you'll see why it's not that big of a deal later. They're taking away some damage somewhere else. Knee Breaker, magnitude increase just by 50, just a small improvement to that single target encounter power. You might think it's not too useful, but they actually have something else to go with that. We'll touch on that later. The Determination daily power, gone from that damage bonus of 10% to 30%. Still don't really see it as all too useful. I doubt you'd use it for control immunity, but maybe in some situation. And otherwise, we go to the new mechanics. So Forge Ahead, it's your block. It's been updated, so now it's going to absorb only 30% of your maximum hit points. Before it was on 40%. Okay, that's a little bit of a nerf, but the massive improvement is the new effect. For the first second, you gain damage immunity to most damage. That's there because there's some bosses which will ignore damage immunity on certain mechanics for balancing. But it has a 3-second cooldown. You also gain the 50% movement speed. So you'll note that here. So just check my character. I'm going to block. You gain the movement speed buff, and you just go speedy. And during that time window, you have immunity frames. However, there seems to be some bugs with the immunity frames on that, and it like reducing your stamina while you're in combat. I'm not fully sure, but the movement speed is there. But you can see like my stamina is going down while I'm blocking, which doesn't make much sense. But it's still a very good thing. You'll have to get used to it, but it's nice that they're going to have some immunity frames. The Seath mechanic basically got way more effective. So you use that to generate rage, and now it will basically drain your stamina like 5 times less for the amount of vengeance you gain. Like there, you barely lost any stamina, which is really good. But you will be using that vengeance an awful lot more, as you'll have a lot of effects to use it. You have the new reprisal mechanic. This is where I mean with the guarded strikes and the shield bash, that magnitude does get improved. 20 with the guarded strikes and 35 with the shield bash. And the reason you may want to use them is if you want to generate some vengeance. So when we are blocking here and we go to attack, we'll generate vengeance while we do so. I'm not sure how useful that is, but you could probably fit it into your rotation. Generating vengeance instead of sitting in Seath, you go and you use this and you still get some okay damage. It's at least something you can play around with. But moving on, we have our next page of updates. And we have Revengeance, a new mechanic. Okay, well, it's a bit of a copy and paste from the tank path, but it's nice to see it here. You can deal 500 magnitude damage in a cone effect. And the way you trigger it is exactly like Retaliate on the tank path. You go Seath and then you retaliate the damage like that. It's just a copy and paste, but it actually has a 5-second cooldown now, not 10 seconds on the tank path. So you can use this as basically an encounter power on a 5-second cooldown, and you're just going to have to keep on top of that, triggering it to maximize your damage. Something I missed earlier was the momentum class feature is actually getting improved by 100 magnitude. So you can use your bull charge and have that on 920 magnitude. Then we have some new class features that are replacing old ones. So Plow the Road, replacing Heated Vengeance. Basically makes your shield slam deal 200 more magnitude damage and consumes 10 vengeance. Here is where we end up with more ways to reduce our vengeance, more ways to consume it and use it. So you're going to have to keep on top of balancing and maintaining it in order to, first of all, gain your, as before, 20% damage buff when you're above 50%. So you want that. But then if you're, let's say, using this ability to improve your shield slam, you want to make sure your vengeance is up there. And then when you go and attack, you'll gain like a pretty heavy hit there. 600 magnitude AoE power is very nice. But then we have a new feature as well, Always Spiteful. This is replacing Steady Vengeance. So it basically will set your vengeance to a certain point if it's below that value when you enter combat. Has a cooldown though. This is just to help a bit with multi-target fights where you're jumping in and out of ad groups. So for example, our vengeance here is only 33. Enter combat and it should immediately trigger up. There we go. And it will, of course, slowly teeter down because it will drain over time if you're not doing anything. That's nice, just something useful you can use rather than having to always maintain that when you're jumping between ad groups. Maybe you'll use it or not. But I think you'll probably use Plow the Road, to be honest, combined with your 10% critical strike here. But next up, we go to our feats, and we have the new Trip Attack feat. This is replacing the heavier slash feat, which pretty much nobody used. Trip Attack will increase the damage of Knee Breaker. So using this, we're going to increase the magnitude to 1300, and it will make the target grant combat advantage. But this will consume vengeance in order to give you that enhanced magnitude. Exactly like you may have had with Anvil of Doom already with the Way of Vengeance, which actually did get an improvement. We'll touch on that in a sec, but that's very nice to make Knee Breaker as a pretty competitive then. 1300 magnitude is pretty massive. And then granting that combat advantage, it has that utility. Won't work in the training room here for some reason or other, but it's the same on the Rogue with the Smoke Bomb. Not working in the training room to grant the combat advantage, but this is then paired with your Weight of Vengeance, which did get a little bit of an update. It's gone from magnitude plus 380 to plus 480. So Anvil of Doom enhanced magnitude is 1260 to 1360, which kind of makes still Weight of Virtue better because you're reducing the cooldown and your damage is just higher in terms of magnitude. But I guess the idea is for knee breaker to have the support with the combat advantage effect and just not draining as much vengeance. You can see you use Weight of Virtue and your Anvil of Doom is going to be reduced in its cooldown if we're above 15 vengeance. There we go. And the cooldown's only then like 13 seconds. And then it got a magnitude increase. So yeah, it's up to you what you want to take there. Then we have Prepared Slam Feat. This one got just completely reworked. It will now just cause tremor to pull enemies towards you. No longer do you have the ability to increase your damage of your area attacks with heavy slash. It's a good thing and a bad thing. You can't now increase the magnitude of shield slam by 200 or tremor or onslaught. But you did get your magnitude increase of shield slam. And then you can increase that further if you wanted to with plow the road. But now you just have a feat rather than increasing damage of like tremor and onslaught by 200 magnitude. You're just making it have a pull effect, and you can see that here when we use it against some of these dummies. So with some of these two, they're controllable. This guy's control immune because he has 5 dots, and if you use it here and you can affect them, you'll suck them towards you, and then you'll be having them nicely grouped up for like your shield slam. So there's a neat combo you can use there. But again, you are giving up that heavy slash feat where you could gain damage on your area attacks. Then you have the Crushing Blows feat. This has been changed, so it's no longer reliant on stat balancing. You just straight up get 20% chance when dealing damage to consume 5 vengeance and deal an extra 150 magnitude damage. This is nice, you don't have to worry about your stats anymore. Now the paired feat with that did get moved. You used to have Roiling Hatred here, but we now have Executioner's Cut, which did get changed. We move to the next page and you can see it's been reworked so that on an encounter hit, you consume 5 vengeance and deal 200 magnitude damage after 2 seconds. Again, that's been swapped places with what was before Roiling Hatred. So we could use this feat right here, and when we go and hit something with an encounter power, they should bleed after 2 seconds and take some extra damage. Hello? Oh yes, we need to have Vengeance for that to happen. Right, so we get Vengeance. I use like our Tremor here. Let's pull towards us, and 2 seconds later, it takes more damage. Yes, so that's working, but you can't like stack it. You can only have that effect once per target, I would assume. Should be able to have it on like all 3 of them. We go use it there. We only hit 2 of them, but will they? Yeah, they both take that bleed damage. Okay, that's good. So that's a bit of extra damage. Again, using Vengeance to deal that. Then you have the Land Waster feat. This is to go with your daily power. Nice improvement with regards to it being a lot more forgiving. You only need your Vengeance above 50 instead of what was before at 90. And it will only consume 50 Vengeance instead of fully depleting it. So you should be able to still get back that Vengeance nice and quickly to maintain that bonus afterwards. It'd be quicker to recover. And then the Roiling Hatred feat. So this has been reworked to simply just generate 2 Vengeance when you critically hit. Again, been swapped with Executioner's Cut, so it's now a last feat. You simply use it to just restore 2 Vengeance whenever you critically hit. They did go and change very slightly the Bloody Reprise feat, which is paired with it now, which would set your Vengeance at 75 when you use an encounter power after your Vengeance dropping below 50 or 50%. They did increase the duration to be 3 seconds now, so when you drop below, you have 3 seconds to cast an encounter power for then your Vengeance to go back up. It will be up to you, and I think in most cases people will take Roiling Hatred, but you'll have to balance your consumption of Vengeance on all of these little effects you might use and abilities, how much you're using depending on your rotation. It's nice to have extra abilities that actually uses it, so it will be a bit of a balance what you'll want to use there. Bloody Reprise, of course, like a little bit more tactful. You're going to have to be aware of when you're using what and what's your Vengeance at. The other one is just simply automatic. You just gain the Vengeance as you attack. Whether that's enough for you, you'll have to test out for yourself. I may do some testing with Fighter DPS I'm just not a huge fan of it, even with these changes. Just the gameplay, all that is not really up my street. It's a little bit clunky, a little bit too clunky in my opinion. But I might do some testing on it and see how well it performs, potentially compared to other classes, and we'll see. Ultimately, that is everything for this update. This is again the preview test server. These updates may very well be coming before Christmas, but it's very unlikely actually. These updates are here for the preview server. They'll be there for testing probably until January by the time the devs have finished their holidays, and then they'll be back and they'll look at feedback and potentially push these out then in January, these changes to the live server, like they did with the Rogue. I'm surprised how quickly those changes for the Rogue went. It was probably 2 weeks at most they left it on the preview server for testing and then pushed it out. But again, we have Christmas in between, so I expect it to be a little bit longer. Unfortunately, not much improvements with the Barbarian. All you can really do is leave your feedback and leave suggestions of what you would think is good that they should do with the Barbarian to increase its effectiveness. Again, a massive thank you to all of these channel members for their added support. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you guys around. Bye for now.